क्षीराब्धिशयना नारायणा क्षीराब्धिशयना नारायणा श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायणा श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायणा क्षीराब्धिशयना नारायणा क्षीराब्धिशयना नारायणा श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायणा श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायणा नारायण हरिनारायण नारायण नारायण श्रितजनपाला नारायण श्रितजनपाला नारायण वैकुण्ठवासा नारायण वैकुण्ठवासा नारायण वैदेहीरमणा नारायण वैदेहीरमणा नारायण क्षीराब्धिशयना नारायण क्षीराब्धिशयना नारायण श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायण श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायण नारायण वेदपारायण नारायण वेदपारायण नरहरिरूपा नारायण नरहरिरूपा नारायण सत्यस्वरूपा नारायण सत्यस्वरूपा नारायण श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायण श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायण श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायण श्रीलक्ष्मीरमणा नारायण बोलिए कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की जय, नारायण भगवान की जय, सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om, everyone. Pranams to Puja Swamiji. Seeking the grace and blessings of Bhagwan Krishna, Radha Krishna ji. We'll begin our reflection on 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, every chapter is called as one yoga. What is first chapter called as? Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Second chapter is Sankhya Yoga. Third is Karma Yoga. 12th is called as Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. Yoga means to join. To join, there has to be two things. Then only there is a need of joining. So, who is joining whom? In Sankhya Yoga, second chapter, the devotee is being connected to that Sankhya knowledge. In Karma Yoga, the devotee is connected to the right way of doing actions. In Dhyana Yoga, devotee is connected to meditation technique, such that he can connect with the same truth. All of them are connecting to Bhagavan only, but different methods to connect is given by different chapters. So Bhakti Yoga will be connecting with what? Devotion. How can a devotee connect with Bhagavan is elaborated in Bhakti Yoga. Did you notice I missed first chapter? If you say yoga means to connect, Arjuna Vishada Yoga would be what? Connecting with sorrow. But if sorrow can bring us to Bhagavan, even that sorrow becomes a way of connecting with the Lord. That is Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Before we enter into 12th chapter, we should pay attention to certain uniqueness of Bhagavad Gita in general. There are few things which are very unique about Bhagavad Gita. All of you must have noticed it, but I am just pointing it out so that it refreshes our memory. First thing unique about Bhagavad Gita is the student of Bhagavad Gita. The student of Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna. How should an ideal student be? That you can see in Arjuna. Imagine the whole war depends upon Arjuna. He knows that he is the main warrior from the side of Pandavas. And after second chapter, he does not ask a single question related to war. Means look at his ability to tune the mind to his teacher. So many things might be happening in the world, but the ability to withdraw. And at least when teaching is going on, to single-pointedly pay attention to teacher. That is the first quality we see in Arjuna. In Vedanta we call this as Uparati. Uparati means if I have to benefit from the knowledge which I am studying, I cannot be thinking of 10 different things and also Vedanta. Thank you. So at least when study is going on, the ability to withdraw. Another quality of Arjuna is understood by the adjectives Bhagavan uses for Arjuna. You can do this as an exercise. In entire Bhagavad Gita, what are the different names by which Bhagavan Krishna calls Arjuna? Every name will have some story. Like one name of Arjuna is Anagha. Anagha means one who is very pure, has no tendency to commit any sin. To that person, Bhagavan says, I will reveal Bhagavad Gita. Another name Bhagavan uses is Kaunteya. Kaunteya is to remind him, you are the son of Mother Kunti, who has seen so many things in life, so many hardships in life, this is nothing for you. And he is completely surrendered to Bhagavan Krishna. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapadye. He says, I am your disciple, please teach me, and I am willing to change. That is the main ingredient needed. We might read Bhagavad Gita so many times, but it will open up only when we are willing to bring some changes in our perspectives. So one uniqueness of Bhagavad Gita is student. Second uniqueness of Bhagavad Gita is the teacher. Sometimes if you go to an art museum, you like a very beautiful painting. You want to know more about the painting. Sometimes you don't understand, what is that abstract painting? Everybody is appreciating. We are trying to figure out what is it. But let us say the artist is there. He himself comes and starts explaining what was my thought process when I did this. Isn't it a great joy? Then trying to figure out ourselves or trying to ask somebody. The artist himself is telling about his work. In the same way, if we want to know about Bhagavan, who can be a better teacher than Bhagavan himself? So Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan is telling, I will tell you about myself. The most authentic information, most authentic knowledge. This is that Bhagavan is giving. Third uniqueness, first one was Arjuna, second is teacher. Third uniqueness is the text itself. If you read Upanishad, they will expect that we have already prepared our mind and we have come there to gain the supreme knowledge. If we ask any question about how do I take care of my mind, how do I have something transactional taken care of, Upanishads don't address it at all. If at all they address, out of 100 verses, 100 mantras, there might be 1 or 2 mantras on sadhana. So on one end of the spectrum, you have Upanishads. Another end of the spectrum, you have Dharma Granthas. For example, Manusmriti. All they will tell us is, do this, don't do this. Do this, don't do this. And human beings generally don't like rules. Too many rules, if it is given, we cannot read it one after the other. So we need sadhana, we need perspectives, but at the same time we need philosophy also. So Puja Guruji, one day he asked us in our Sandipani course, how will you define Bhagavad Gita in one word? In one word. Many of us had memorized many things, We said, it is called as Smruti Grantha. There is one thing called as Shruti Grantha, another called as Smruti Grantha. Guruji heard everybody. Finally he said, Bhagavad Gita is Marga Darshaka Grantha. Marga Darshaka means which I can keep with me, and whenever I need guidance, I can seek the shelter of Mother Bhagavad Gita. It is said one of the books that Swami Vivekananda carried with him throughout his travel was Bhagavad Gita. Marga Darshaka Grantha, that is its uniqueness. We will find the supreme most philosophy. At the same time, sadhanas will be pointed out, such that our transactional life is happy, mind is cheerful, and we can aim for something higher. 3 uniquenesses we saw: Arjuna, the student, the teacher, and the text. Last uniqueness, there are many in what we can see. The fourth one is the setting in which the teaching is given. Generally, if you see any teaching that has taken place, there is a student who is sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, has all the qualifications necessary to be a good student. He goes to the ashram of his guru. In the background of Himalayas, birds chirping, quiet surrounding of that ashram, guru will give the teaching. Here the background is trumpets, drums, people crying to start the war. And he is the main player. What do they say? MVP of that team. Most valued player of the team. To him, in that battleground, Bhagwan is giving this teaching. Means that speaks about the applicability, the relevance, and the practicality of this teaching. In 4th chapter, Bhagwan says, one who can see the actionless self amidst all actions, that person has realized the supreme-most goal of life. That person who sees the actionless self while doing actions, one who recognizes his own nature as actionless self, that person has fulfilled the purpose of human birth. That is the main emphasis in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagwan is not talking about dropping actions and running away. Nor is he talking about mindlessly engaging into actions. Bhagwan is talking about how to engage in action such that we can grow out of actions or grow through actions. Growing through action meaning appreciating higher nature. Growing through action is the teaching of which yoga? Karma yoga outside. Inside it is bhakti yoga. That is going to be the theme of 12th chapter. Bhagwan is going to tell what is the heart of a devotee. See, external action will be the same. Devotee and non-devotee doing action, both actions will look the same externally. For example, sweeping the floor. A person can sweep the floor just as a chore. Shabriji can sweep the floor out of devotion to Lord. Action being the same, what makes it karma yoga is the bhakti inside. So that elaboration will come in this chapter. That's why it is titled as Bhakti Yoga. What is nature of Bhagwan and how can we connect with him? And Bhagwan is very compassionate. There will be a set of shlokas where he'll say, okay, this is the best way to connect with me. If you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do this. 4 options he gives. At least do this. Last one. So in different ways he will point out. And the last portion of this chapter is a very, very beautiful portion which talks about the qualities of a devotee. In a perfected devotee, how does devotion express in his transactional life? Because sometimes people might have their own ideas about devotee. Means one who is always crying is a devotee. Or one who does things haphazardly. Puja Sohamji is always critical about this. Swami Sarupananji, he would say, Hum to bhagat hai. Why did you mess up this thing? He said, Hum to bhagat hai. We are devotees, we can do whatever we want. So Bhagwan is going to tell, whom do I call as devotee? Any title we cannot give ourselves on our own. Even title of manager, employee, everything has to be given by somebody. I cannot start calling myself whatever I want. In the same way, devotee title also is given by Bhagwan. So that will be the last portion of 12th chapter. I am telling this so that all of you come all 4 days. Now, we are in 12th chapter, right? What has Arjuna heard so far? Because he is going to ask a question. Beginning of 12th chapter, he will ask a question. To ask his question, he needs to have some background. That was one rule in olden days. In Prashnopanishad, there is a story. Students come with burning questions. Teacher says, you stay here for 1 year. Do seva. After that, you can ask. If I know, I will answer. Means imagine the faith they should have. They will observe first how the student is. And he needs to have some background, some data. Then only he can have questions. So Arjuna has heard chapter 1 through 6, where Bhagwan elaborated the nature of supreme most truth. He said the truth is nirguna. That is your own true self. That absolute truth is na sato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate satah. That truth is sat, of the nature of existence. It can never perish. And whatever is perishable, really speaking, is not born. So everything Arjuna heard. Essential nature of God is nirguna. From 7th to 11th chapter, Bhagwan elaborated how that same nirguna, how that same formless truth appears as saguna. How that same truth appears as this whole creation, whole universe. That was elaborated from 7th through 11th chapter. Bhagwan said you cannot stay at one. If you only say there is Nirguna Brahma and somebody asks you about Saguna, you say I don't know about Saguna, or I have my own doubts whether Saguna is there or not. Bhagwan says no, your Jnanam has to translate to Vijnanam. If you know gold, it is Jnanam. But when you see ornaments, you can remember the gold. That is called as Vijnanam. If I say every time I want to recognize gold, I have to see it in that gold bar form only. That is not true knowledge. Even when that gold becomes ornament, I am seeing a necklace, I am seeing a ring, I am seeing bangle. My thought is on gold. Understanding is gold. Like that, Bhagwan says, it is good you have understood Nirguna Brahma, which is like gold. But when that Nirguna Brahma appears as Saguna, in ornament form, as his creation, that time you should not lose sight of reality. To explain that, he elaborated 7th through 11th chapter. This analogy is clear, right? Between Nirguna and Saguna. A few more examples. Ramakrishna Paramahamsi gives example of water and ice. He says water is all-pervading, that is like Nirguna. In between that water, you will have pieces of ice. That same water has become ice because of temperature. Like that, the same truth has become Saguna because of several reasons. So they are not two things, it is one thing appearing as two from two different standpoints. If somebody asks you, does sun rise or not? What will you say? How many of you will say no? How many will say yes? Something you have to say. You cannot be neutral. If you say yes, ask the sun. Today's sunrise was so beautiful. What will sun say? I never rise, I never set. From the conditioning of earth, there is sunrise, there is sunset. Lotus blossoms because of sunrise. All animals start working, human beings are supposed to start working with the sun clock. You cannot deny that sunrise is non-existent. In the same way, Nirguna alone appears as Saguna from a specific conditioning standpoint. So Arjuna heard this. There is something called as Nirguna, there is something called as Saguna. Now he is asking in 12th chapter, those who have understood you as Nirguna and those who worship you as Saguna, amongst these two people, who has understood you better? Very careful. He is not asking who is better. Sometimes we generally translate it as who is better, Nirguna Bhakta is better or Saguna Bhakta is better. He is asking between Nirguna Upasaka and Saguna Upasaka, who has understood you better? Whose understanding is right? But he begins his question with a connection to 11th chapter. Last verse of 11th chapter. Do you all have Holy Gita book? Okay, if you don't have, if you just have 12th chapter, then I will just read it. You can repeat after me. Last verse of 11th chapter, you see. Matkarma krunmat paramaha madbhakta sangavarjitah nirvairas sarvabhuteshu yassamameti pandava. Now let us start 12th also. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Evam, in this way. In what way? That's why we chanted the previous verse. We will see that later. Evam satata yuktaye. In this way, those who have understood you as Saguna. Remember, he knows that there is only one truth. Those who have understood that truth as Saguna, and all the time, satata yukta. Satata yuktaha means constantly keeping their mind tuned with that truth. Bhaktaha, devotees, paryupasate. They worship you in many ways. That is our beauty. There is no one way of worship. According to the temperament of the person, different ways are given. Somebody asked Gurudev, why are there so many gods? Why are there so many types of worship in our religion? He said, when you go for a buffet, why are there so many items? He said, according to your taste, you can choose whatever you want. You are not expected to take all items. Like that, if somebody is into pujanam of the Lord, that will be their path. Somebody likes japa, that will be their path. Somebody likes kirtan, that will be their path. Somebody is a meditator. Of course, there is a sequence also between the paths. One might graduate from one to another. But paryupasate means they worship you in several ways, knowing you as Saguna. Ye cha api aksharam avyaktam. Then there is second category who has understood you as Nirguna. Aksharam means that imperishable truth. And avyaktam never becomes an object of sense organs. It is always drashta, never drishya. Always the seer, never the seen. There are some devotees who meditate upon that nirguna aspect of Bhagavan. Tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Vittamaha means knower. Vittamaha means supreme knower. Who has known you better? Saguna person or nirguna person? Now it is important to know who these people are. Huh? Saguna Bhakta, one example can be somebody like Surdas ji. You all know the story or background of Surdas ji, right? He didn't have physical eyes. We call them Prajna Chakshu. I mean, they had the eye of wisdom. And it is said, Vallabhacharya ji, Pushti Marga, Sampradaya, Acharya, he touches him once. He goes and takes darshan of Vallabhacharya ji, and just by his sparsha, he gets vision of Bhagavan. And his whole life is surrendered to Bhagavan Krishna. He has written one composition called as Surasagar. Around 10,000 songs are there. In total compositions, that much number of songs he has composed. And it is said, whenever he would go to a temple, even if he didn't have physical eyes, he could see the alankara of the Lord. And he would tell which vastra Bhagavan Krishna is wearing today. So one day somebody gets a doubt. He says, you are going and telling all the color. We wonder whether you are just bluffing that you cannot see. What if you can see and you are just telling like that? So one day what they do is, they don't do any alankara. No clothes, nothing. And just one Manimala is there. And the way he would tell the color is, he would compose a song on the fly. And in that song, he would have the color. So today there was no vastram on Bhagwan. So he composes a song, Aaj Deke Hari Nangama Nanga. Today I saw Hari in his true form, without any vastram. Jalasutta Bhushana Anga Biraje. Niraki Harita Chabi Koti Ananga. Jalasutta, you know what Jalasutta is? Gems. Jala means water, Sutta means sun. The sun of water is gem. Jalasutta Bhushana, that ornament is made out of gems. And even with those gems, Bhagavan is looking as though it is 1,000 Kamadevas put together. So a devotee whose mind is always in Bhagavan, that is first category. Second category, Nirguna. Somebody like Kabir Das ji. All his songs sometimes are very difficult to read, If you don't have the background of Vedanta, his mind is always in Nirguna. Great devotee, but his way of worship is Nirguna. It is not somebody who is an intellectual person. The second type which is spoken here, it is not somebody who is curious about Vedanta, just keeps asking questions. Is there God? I don't believe in God. I am religious. No, I am spiritual but not religious. It is not that person. This person is somebody who has already graduated from first step. Saguna Bhakti has been ripened. Now his mind is only in Nirguna. Somebody like Gaudapadacharya ji, Taponji Maharaj. Between these two devotees, who has understood you better? Tesham ke yoga vittamaha. But you see, there is a nice adjective given, right? Evam means devotees, how do they live? All of you are with me, right, so far? In the first verse of 12th chapter, first line is devotee, whose mind is always on Bhagwan. Second line is those who worship Nirguna Brahma. First line worship Saguna, second line worship Nirguna. First line, those who are Saguna Bhaktas, how are they? That is connected with 11th chapter, last verse. 5 indicators are given of a devotee. All are very beautiful indicators. If any time you get this question, what is bhakti? How does a devotee live? How does he look? As you read this verse. First insignia of the devotee is mat karma krut. Karma means actions. He does all the actions to please me only. Does all the actions to please Bhagavan. It is just like somebody whom we love is coming home, and let's say it's their birthday. Now, whatever things we are doing to plan for that birthday, it might be the menu, it might be the decoration, might be the setup. Everything is to please whom? That person who is coming. In the same way, this person does things to please God. One Mahatma Ji, he would say, what is Karma Yoga? He said, Vishwa ki samagri se Vishweshwar ki puja. Vishwa ki samagri means this whole universe belongs to God. He has blessed us with so many things. This devotee remembers that and goes on with his duties in his life as puja to Vishweshwara. Vishwa ki samagri se Vishweshwar ki puja, that is his mindset. That is the first quality. Mat karma krut. Action has not changed. What has changed is for whose sake is he doing it. So anytime we get this question, okay, I'm doing this action, will it be called karma yoga or not? The question we should ask ourselves is, for whose sake am I doing it? That will give us the answer. If it is for Bhagwan and Bhagwan alone, that is called as karma yoga. Second one is mat paramaha. Mat parama means not only he does actions for me, but in his priority list, I am the top priority. Sometimes a person might have Bhagwan as his goal, but it is not his only goal. Bhagwan ही नहीं चाहिए, Bhagwan भी चाहिए. He doesn't want only God, he wants also God. He says this person is somebody who is mat paramaha. He considers Bhagwan as the supreme. You know, Annamacharyaji's compositions we hear so much. There is a story where the king in whose kingdom he lived, Raja Narasimha, he hears some of his compositions. And he says, your compositions are so beautiful, can you compose something on me also? Annamacharyaji says, my tongue sings glory of only the Lord, not of anybody else. To the king he says that. And he gets imprisoned. And what happens to Prahladji? How Narasimha Bhagwan comes and releases him, same thing happens to him. Devotees' lives are filled with miracles. And if we have that faith, we should hold on to it to deepen our Shraddha. there is no point in logically explaining how it happened. He said it has already happened, they have benefited. So second one is Mat Paramaha. Somebody like Mirabai. He says, Mere to Giridhar Gopal, dusara na koi. I have only one master, nobody else. Rahim Das Ji, it is said, he was a great Dani. So much so that when he gave, he would look down and give. So that he doesn't even see to whom he is giving. So Goswami Tulsidas Ji, he was his contemporary. He writes to him in one doha, why is it that you look down and give? Why don't you look at your donor? I mean the person to whom you are giving and then give. He says, I know that the real giver is only one. Data ek Ram, I am only an instrument. If I look at him, then this thought will come, I am giving. So for me, Bhagwan is my Parama. That is his devotee. Does all the actions for Bhagwan and in his heart considers Bhagwan as the supreme. See, many people, we might have reverence towards, we might have love towards, but we don't consider to be supreme. A person might be working for his boss, but in his mind, boss is not Paramaha. This example Shankaracharya only gives in 6th chapter. He says there can be a person who is working for a king, but his heart is with somebody else. He doesn't consider king as supreme. My devotee is somebody who considers me as supreme and does all actions for me. Mat Karmakrit, Mat Paramaha. Third one is Mad Bhaktaha. Bhakta is formed from the root bhaj. Bhajanam means to take delight. To take delight, to have rasa. Our mind effortlessly goes only to that place where it gets rasa. Rasa in English means delight. Where we don't get joy, we have to drag ourselves. And wherever we get joy, no matter who stops us, we will find a way to go there. Rasa is a very deep facet of our personality. So this is a devotee who has found rasa in Bhagavan. And it is so intoxicating for him that all other rasa doesn't appeal anymore. Means he has lost taste for worldliness. 3 things related to devotion. Mat Karmakrit, Mat Paramaha, Mad Bhaktaha. How does he interact with the world? Sangha Varjitaha. He is devoid of attachment. Means no person is there in his life to whom he gets overly attached. How did he get attached? Because he started seeing joy in that thing. Mind started telling that this thing is very good. It can be an object, it can be a person. Vedanta calls it as Shobhana Buddhi. Before it came in our life, we were happy. When it came in our life, we ourselves started projecting joy in it and started going after it. He says, he has trained his mind such, doesn't develop sangha towards anything. Not that his life is very dry, no love, not in that way, but there is no attachment. Whether it is there or not there, he is equally happy. Sangavarjitaha. In Bhagavatam, Prahaladji, he tells Vaman Bhagwan, Vaman Bhagwan, he takes avatar. Bali Maharaj, he gives the teaching. In 3 steps, he covers whole world, takes it away from Bali Maharaj. Prahaladji comes and Prahaladji is grandfather of Bali Maharaj. He comes and says, Bhagwan, your giving is also Shobhanam, your taking away is also Shobhanam. Shobhanam means graceful. He says our mind should be such, whatever you give, it is graceful. Whatever you take, that is also graceful. That is this person who is Sangavarjitaha, doesn't get attached. Last one is Nirvairaha Sarvabhuteshu. He doesn't have any enemies, no hatred towards anybody. That is his greatness. Nirvairaha Sarvabhuteshu. In Lord Buddha's life, he had many disciples. He would test them before they were ready to go out into world for preaching. One disciple is ready to graduate. Lord Buddha calls him. And he says, tomorrow you'll go and live in the villages, ask for bhiksha. And you'll also give talks. If nobody is interested in your talks, what will you do? He says, that is not bad, O teacher. At least they are not opposing me. At least they are not opposing me. Then he says, Lord Buddha, what if they start opposing you? You are teaching, they are criticizing what you are teaching. What will you do? He said, they are only criticizing. At least they are not harming me. Then he says, if they harm you, if they start beating you up, what will you do? He says, only they are beating me, at least I am alive. Then he says, if they take your life away, what will you do? He says, you only have taught me this body is meant to perish one day. If it can perish doing your work, what better thing can be there? He says, you are ready to go in the world. Graduation certificate given by Buddha. Nirvairaha Sarvabhuteshu, he sees everything as God. What is pleasant, what is unpleasant, he has lost the line between them. Not that he doesn't see it, not that he is having some kind of homogeneous view, that everything appears same. In spite of seeing it, he is not affected by it. That is this devotee. Yudhishthira, after the whole Mahabharata was done, he kept Dhritarashtra and Gandhari in his palace. And every day morning after his puja, he would go and bow down to Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. That is this devotee. And when both of them are taken away by Vidurji, he feels so sad. He says, what did I do wrong? Did I not take care of them well enough? Naradji says, don't go overboard. They are very well taken care by Vidurji. Don't become an obstacle in their path now. That is this devotee who doesn't have any enemies. What is the other name of such people? Ajatashatru. Ajatashatru means that person for whom enemy is not born. Yudhishthira's other name is that, Ajatashatru. It says between these kind of devotees who are having all these 5 qualities, first 3 are related to devotion. Last 2 are how do they transact in the world. And the Nirguna Upasaka, who has understood you better. We should understand the question first, then only the answer will make sense. Otherwise we say, I got the answer. Only thing I'm having doubt is question. It happens sometimes. If you are studying some subtle text like Panchadashi and all, answer will be elaborated in 20 shlokas. And because you have heard Vedanta and all, you will understand what is the answer. So, oh teacher, my only problem is, what was the question for which he answered this many shlokas? So, I hope the question is clear, what they are doing. Now, Bhagwan answers, he says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetaha Te Me Yukta Tamamataha. Together. Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetaha Te Me Yukta Tamamataha. Te Me Yukta Tamamataha. I consider them who has understood me in the best way. I consider them to be the best. Who are those people? Mai Aveshya Manaha. Those people whose mind is soaked in me, whose mind is immersed in me. If you search their mind, you will find me. Have you seen this Jaipur dye? How they do this, dots in that cloth? They will take the cloth, tie it, and dip it in ink. And then open it up, a pattern will come. How that cloth, when you dip it, gets the color of that? Like that, their mind is dipped or soaked in Bhagwan. All the compositions we hear, right? Rama Rangalaga, Hari Rangalaga, Mana Rama Rangi Rangale. That mind has started reveling in the Lord. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Uddhavji is sent to Gokul by Bhagavan Krishna. He says, go and meet people there. You will learn many things. First he comes and meets Yashodaji and Nanda Baba. It is said after Bhagavan Krishna left, Yashodaji stopped speaking. She would just look at those places wherever Bhagwan played, and her mind would just revel in Leelas of Bhagwan. She didn't feel any urge, any need to speak. Uddhavji goes and sits next to Nanda Baba, and he asks him, tell me something about Bhagavan Krishna. Whole night, Uddhavji recollects Leelas of Bhagwan. Least concerned whether who is listening, who is not listening. Nanda Baba recollects Leelas of Bhagavan Krishna. Uddhavji is there, but he doesn't even know whether he is there or not. In his own world, he is explaining where Bhagwan was, how he walked, what he did, different Leelas that he did. Is it that devotee whose mind is immersed in me? Mai Aveshya Manaha. Nityayuktaha. Not connected to me once in a while or few hours in a day. He is always connected to me. If he has to go out in the world, he feels lot of agitation inside. He feels lot of sorrow that Bhagwan, I have to take my mind away from you. And whenever he is with Bhagwan, his mind is very, very cheerful and joyful. It's a nitya yuktaha. Now you will say, if we have to practice this devotion, it looks very impractical. Means you can't do anything but remember God. So the way we can understand it is, his mind gets very agitated or disappointed when it has to think about worldly things. Duties he is already doing as offering to the Lord. So while doing duties, he already has connection with Bhagavan. But in spite of everything, it might be possible that we'll have to do certain things which are more extroverted. Many devotees, they share. See, once you get a taste for study, scriptures, some kind of sadhana, you don't like too much of social partying. That becomes a chore to go and do. Any kind of social activity which takes mind away from the Lord, he feels very uncomfortable. Nitya yuktaha upasate. In that way he is worshipping. What is the main ingredient in his heart? Does he know Sanskritam? Is that the main ingredient? Does he have to be very well versed in different texts and everything, memorized several things? He says, no, the main ingredient is faith. Shraddhayaha paraya upetaha. He is covered or soaked in faith. That is his main strength. Gurudev would say, faith is that power which opens a window for enquiry. And whatever we had faith in which we don't see, the culmination of seeing is in what we had faith in. Faith will start in some altar which we don't see right now. But culmination will be in seeing that thing which we had faith in. Otherwise, what is the point, Forever you are expected to remain at faith level. Bhagavan himself will say, finally you should say, whatever is said in scriptures is true. See, if there is a doctor, you say, this is a very good doctor. I have faith in his medicines. Now, if somebody says, have you taken his medicine? Has he cured you of something? He says, no, I have faith that he will cure me. You say, faith is good, but you don't want to stay there. You start with faith and end your journey in conviction. So this devotee is somebody who has lot of Shraddha. In our scriptures, it is said, Shraddha is one form of wealth. Shraddha vitto bhutva. Vittam means wealth. If you have to do this pilgrimage of spirituality, spiritual journey, the wealth that we need in our pocket is faith. And Bhagwan's nature is such, nobody can say, I know him very well. We sing bhajans, right? Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. Infinity nobody can fathom and say, I know this infinity. If you make infinity to be known, then you are making it finite. So in Shiva Mahimna Stotram, there is one verse which comes, Tava tattvam na janami, kidrushosi maheshwara. Pushpadanta Acharya, he is praying to Lord Shiva. He says, I don't know how you are. But whatever way you are, you know, right? In that way I worship you. Whatever way you are, in that way I worship you. Means not knowing the magnanimity of Bhagavan is actually bhushanam, not dushanam. Bhushanam means it's an ornamentation. It is not a fallacy or a fault. So if Bhagwan is of this nature and we have to walk further on this path, what is our anchor? Faith. That is the main ingredient. Shraddhaya parayopetaha teme yukta tamamataha. They are the ones who are the best. See, Bhagwan Krishna, his style of teaching is very different. He will never give direct answers. Even the way he stands, it's little. Means his all answers are, he will say, I will present everything on the table. You decide what is the right thing. He has not said they are better than the other people. What did Arjuna say? Arjuna asked, between those two, Saguna Upasaka and Nirguna Upasaka, who has understood you better? His answer should have been, these people have understood me better. What did he answer? Saguna Upasakas are the best. Then what about Nirguna Upasaka? They are not the best. He says, let me explain. Ye tvaksharama nirdeshyam avyaktam pariyupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutasthamachalam dhruvam ye tvaksharama nirdeshyam avyaktam pariyupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutasthamachalam dhruvam sanniyamyendriyagramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhutahite rataha sanniyamyendriyagramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhutahite rataha. Verse number 3 talks about nature of Nirguna Brahma. Verse number 4 talks about what is the preparation needed for those who are going to know this Nirguna Brahma. So what should come first? Preparation or the teaching? Preparation, right? So let us see 4th verse first. He says there are 3 qualifications which are needed for those who are going to walk on the path of Nirguna Brahma. First qualification is Sanniyamendriya Gramam. Gramam means group. Indriya Gramam means group of all sense organs. Organ of actions, organ of perception, and mind. Means their whole personality is very well regulated and controlled. Sanniyamya. Whatever they speak, whatever they see, whatever they hear, they are very alert about input and output. In particular, audiovisual. Majority of our input happens through seeing and hearing. So Indriya Gramam is very well regulated. See, in Lakshmanji's Charitra, there is one portion. When all the monkeys, they find that ornament dropped by Sitaji, and when Bhagwan Rama comes, they show these ornaments to Bhagwan. And Bhagwan shows it to Lakshmanji. He says, Lakshmanji, do you know if this belongs to Sitaji? There's a famous verse, he says, Naham janami keyure. I don't know any of those other ornaments, anklets. I don't know the armlet, whatever is there. Nupuram evatu janami nityam padhavi vandanat. I know only her anklets because my eyes would be only on her feet. Keyuram Kankanam na janami. I don't know any other things because my eyes were only on her feet. That is this Indriya Gramam Sanyamya. Very well regulated. How his input, or he always is alert, his input should not agitate the mind. Interaction with the world should not strengthen the vasanas. On one hand, he is trying to scrub off the vasanas. On the other hand, he is strengthening the vasanas. There is one dance form called as Lejim dance. Have you heard it? You take one step forward, two steps backward. Lejim. You see, sometimes our sadhana is like that. We go little forward and two steps backward by not being alert in our transactions. So this sadhaka is very well regulated. Organ of action also, in particular speech. What is one sadhana in sadhana panchakam related to speech? Natu vrutha vakyam samucharyatam. Bhagavan Shankaracharya tells a spiritual seeker, if there is no need to speak, please don't speak. And if we are in social gatherings, at work or somewhere else, do you all feel that pressure sometimes? Because everybody is speaking, some or the other topic we have to choose and start speaking. He says, for a spiritual seeker, there is another mantra which says, Gau Pashvadivat Vang Nirodha. We should speak only as much as the cow. When it chews the grass, once in a while it makes sound. Other than that, it is quiet. Just, reflecting or chewing it. Like that, the seeker should reflect upon God. And whenever it is needed, he said, speak. But Indriya should be in control. Sanniyamyendriya Gramam. Sarvatra Samabuddhaya. Second qualification needed is equanimity. Equanimity with regards to objects, with regards to people, and with regards to situations. Doesn't get too carried away with objects. We tell children one story, right, of Hanumanji. Somebody gives him a necklace. Hanumanji removes all the beads, bites it open, looks into it and throws it away. And that person comes and asks, why did you throw it away? He says, I was just seeing whether it has Bhagwan Rama and Sita ji or not. If that object doesn't have Bhagwan, I am not interested. Now, how will you understand it? The symbolic meaning? Means if an object takes us away from God, this devotee says, that is not what I want. So he is equanimous when it comes to objects. Doesn't get carried away, doesn't get colored by objects. Second is the most difficult one. Equanimity with people. People. See, one way to be equanimous, even situations, you can put it in the same category. How do we remain equanimous in situations? If we know that this situation is sent to us by somebody whom we love, and the one who has sent it is our well-wisher, then our ability to accept is better. Equanimity is better if we are convinced of this fact that the one who has sent it is our well-wisher. There was one Mahatma Ji, his name was Udiya Babaji. He had one dharamshala where everybody was allowed to stay. Anybody can come and stay for one night. And the only possession they can hold there, or most people would have there, is one blanket. So Udiya Babaji, what he would do is, he would come at night some blanket of his devotees, disciples. If he found a hole, he would put his hand and tear it. And next day morning, they would wake up and they would wonder, Kambal kisne phada? Who tore this kambal? Who tore this blanket? They would look at each other. Then finally the manager would tell, Udiya Babaji ne phada. Udiya Babaji came and he tore your blanket. Now this person whose blanket was torn, he was also a great Mahatma. Huh? Later he writes, whenever this happened to us, we would feel we are on 11th heaven. We would feel so happy, so delighted that Udiya Babaji remembered me. He came and tore my blanket out of all the people. He said that is what happens when we know that the person who is sending it is somebody whom we love. In Gurudev's life, there are so many devotees who share. Whoever got scolded by Gurudev, they would go and brag to everybody that today we got scolded. I brought that tea and it spilled a little and Gurudev gave me such a good scolding. Means what is the point there? If you love somebody, even their scolding appears to be good. At least their attention is on me. Like that, this devotee feels whatever situation comes. He says this situation is sent by God and he is equanimous. With people, he maintains the same equanimity. One is he is seeing Bhagwan as everybody. Just like if a mother has 3 children, she sees herself in all 3. Whoever wins a medal, she feels happy, she feels equally happy. I had read somewhere, the happiest person in the match between Serena Williams and Venus Williams is the mother. She is sitting and watching the match. Whoever wins, she is happy. Samatha, equanimity comes when we see that bond and oneness. So in this way, this is the second qualification. Samabuddhaya. Sarvatra Samabuddha. At all times, in all places, he is equanimous. Person who is too opinionated, it's very difficult to study Vedanta. Person who has strong preferences, he says Nirguna Brahma is difficult. Next verse will come that. 2 qualifications done for Nirguna. What was the first one? Sanniyamendriya Gramam. It is helpful to take some notes. Because you might listen 1.5 hours. And if somebody asks, first of all, you might say, oh, the talk, I sat through the whole talk. And somebody asks, okay, what did you hear? Sometimes it is difficult even to summarize for 5 minutes. Because our mind is like drawing line on water. As you go further, previous line gets evaporated. If you write notes, it will be like drawing line on sand. At least you can go back and see what was there. Ideal is line on concrete. You have to reflect also, and it will stay with us also. First one was Sanniyamendriya Gramam. Control of sense organs, mind. Second qualification was equanimous. Sarvatra Samabuddhaya. Third qualification for Vedanta sadhaka is Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. He is ever engaged in doing good to others. Doing good to everyone. Sarva Bhuta. Hite means well-being. Rataha means engrossed. This we should always remember. Sometimes people feel Vedanta makes us very insensitive to the world. Vedanta makes us very introverted. You see, you don't know where they studied Vedanta. True Vedanta is these qualifications. Swami Vivekananda ji writes in one place, I find it difficult to accept that religion which cannot wipe tears. If spirituality makes us insensitive, least concerned about world outside, we have missed something. Sarvabhuta hiterataha. See, final vision of Vedanta is to see that self as this creation. To see the creation as an appearance in the self. And if we have enemy as our neighbor, or neighbor as our enemy, we might say 99.99% of world is God, except my neighbor. And really speaking, the turning point is going to be few people in our life. To see God in somebody in a remote country, Ethiopia, some other country, to say everybody there is God. Everybody around is God. Everything is fine. But those where we have Raga Dvesha, there to see Bhagwan, that will be our sadhana. See, one benefit of thinking about well-being of others is our problem looks small. That is one immediate benefit. There is one saint who has written one couplet where he says, I stopped complaining about shoes when I saw somebody without legs. So when we think about somebody else, we say whatever we are going through, it looks very small. And second benefit is, we operate at our best whenever we help others. Have you all heard Moonlight Sonata? If your kids play piano, this is one of the pieces they teach them. It's a very popular piece, Moonlight Sonata. It's composed by the famous musician Beethoven. And the story goes, Beethoven was just walking down the street, and in one cobbler's shop, he sees a little girl trying to play piano. And she doesn't have physical eyes. So she's just, trying to put her hand here and there and just saying to herself, I wish I had somebody who could teach me piano. Beethoven overhears that, goes inside, and because of his musical prowess, teaches her how to play a piece. And this girl is ecstatic. She feels in such a short time he has taught me how to play. And Beethoven comes home. Out of that joy, what he composes is called as Moonlight Sonata. Just that act of helping that girl gave so much of joy. This brought out a legendary composition. So the point is, Sarva Bhuta Hiterataha, one who is always engaged in doing good to others. What happens to them? Te prapnuvanti mameva. They attain me only. Bhagwan, what was the question and how did you answer? Arjuna asked you, between Nirguna and Saguna, who has understood you better? You said those who are Saguna Upasakas, they are the best. Nirguna Upasaka, they have attained me. Did he answer his question or not? The answer, one way we can understand is, those who are Nirguna Upasaka, the knower is not there anymore. Knower of Brahman, okay. What is knower of physics called as? Physicist. Okay, one who is good at physics is called as physicist. Knower of chemistry is called as chemist. Knower of Brahman is called as? Knower of Brahman is Brahman. One who knows Brahman doesn't say, I know Brahman. Because Brahman is his own nature. To know something, it has to be different from us. To know something very well, it has to be different from that person. Firewood burns. But you cannot say fire burns. Wood is different from fire. You can say that fire burnt wood very well. But you cannot say fire burnt fire very well. This Bhagavan Shankaracharya says in Kenopanishad. The student comes to his guru and probably he thought that he knows Brahman very well. His guru tells him, Yadi manyase suvedeti, no na vedeti vedacha. Yadi manyase suvedeti. If you think you know it very well, dabhramevapi nonam. That's what he says. Yadi manyase suvedeti, dabhramevapi nonam. You don't really know it. Think again. Go back to your drawing board, think again. Can you know Brahman very well? If you say you know Brahman very well, then you have already made Brahman into an object. Something different from you. So between those two people, one person has opted out of the race. Saguna Upasaka and Nirguna Upasaka. Who knows you very well? Bhagavan says there is no knowing very well here. They just become me. Te prapnuvanti mameva. They have attained me alone. Gurudev gives an example of salt doll going to find depth of ocean. It says, I am going to find how deep this ocean is. It says, the moment you step in, it becomes one with it. Janata tumahi hoi jaiye. Goswamiji says, knowing you, devotee becomes you. That is Nirguna Upasaka. Now, what is the nature of Nirguna? That is said in the previous verse. Okay, which we will continue tomorrow. And now he is going to switch completely to Saguna Upasaka. What are the different steps? If you can't do the best, try the next. He'll give different steps and then take us further. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Hari Om.